Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on day 3 of our Adults Safeguarding Adults Week's webinars. I hope you've managed to get to a few more a few earlier this week, and I hope that you've already registered for some more that we've got on for this afternoon and Thursday and Friday. We've got a really full timetable, and I hope that you've enjoyed what we've put on and learnt loads. So my name's Marcia Campbell and I work for the Safeguarding Adults Board. And joining us today, we've got DI James Jackson from Thames Valley Police. James is going to be running a session for us on sexual consent. He's been part of a campaign that's run across Thames Valley Police. So I'd like to take this opportunity to hand over to James and thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcia. As Marcia said, my name's James Jackson. I'm a detective inspector from Thames Valley Police, currently working in the Domestic Abuse Investigation Unit, West Berkshire based. Thank you for inviting me to speak on this topic today. I am here to talk to you about some work Thames Valley Police has been doing with other partner agencies working in regards to consent conversations. It's a subject that's often misunderstood. And I believe it's deeply relevant both within the policing world and that within the safeguarding adults. Consent is one of the most fundamental principles in protecting autonomy and dignity, yet it's surrounded by myths and misconceptions. Many people still believe that consent is implied by silence, that it can be withdrawn, or that certain relationships make consent unnecessary. These myths don't just distort public understanding, they influence how victims are treated and how cases progress through the criminal justice system. The reality is fairly stark. Despite the prevalence of sexual offences, conviction rates remain extremely low. This isn't because victims aren't reporting. It's often due to evidential complexities, societal attitudes, and the way consent is perceived. When myths dominate, victims are less likely to be believed and perpetrators are less likely to be held accountable. That's why I, along with a colleague of mine, launched this campaign to start honest, informed conversations about consent, challenge harmful narratives and empower professionals and communities to understand what consent really means. Our aim is to create a culture where victims feel supported and where accountability is clear. So why is it relevant to adult safeguarding? So safeguarding isn't just about preventing harm, it's about promoting autonomy, as I mentioned, and protecting people's rights. Adults at risk face additional barriers to expressing or withholding consent, whether due to their cognitive impairments, cohesion, or dependency. Understanding consent in these contexts is critical for us all making safeguarding decisions, assessing capacity and ensuring interventions with respect and wishes of the individuals. By embedding clear, consistent consent principles when safeguarding, we can challenge myths, improve professional confidence and support informed decision making. Ultimately, this campaign isn't just about policing, it's about everyone within a partnership. And together we can create safer environments where consent is understood, respected and upheld. Throughout this whole presentation, I'll go through why the consent campaign came about, what we've done during the consent campaign, and link that back in, obviously, to adult safeguarding. We did create a 20-minute documentary, which was created, and we've got the face of that being Georgia Harrison, who is a campaigner for violence against women and girls. Very popular with the younger age groups. Off the back of this, she has gained recognition along with some of the other work that she's done and received an MBE. So I'm going to start by showing you that. I'm just going to share my screen. Marcia, please speak up if you can't see it.
No problem.
There?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. I'll start playing now.
Hi, I'm Georgia Harrison. I'm a reality TV star, activist and presenter. You will probably know me from Towie, Love Island, or my documentary called Georgia vs Bear, Revenge Porn. I am well known for being a victim of image-based sexual abuse, which obviously really does come down to consent. So I don't think I fully understood what consent was. When I was in school, there wasn't that many conversations about consent, and their permission for something before you do it. Consent doesn't just come down to getting a no. It's very important to get a yes and make sure that you're reading a situation correctly. It's so important that people are having these discussions between their friends.
My name's Laura Coscaden. I'm a Detective Chief Inspector with Thames Valley Police, and I've spent about half my career investigating sexual offences. This campaign's hugely important to me. As police, we see the impact of sexual offences, we see the end result, and its effect on people's lives is devastating. We were given the ability and the powers to investigate, and through that we enter into people's lives when the worst thing has happened to them. And that gives us quite a unique position in terms of understanding and recognising the importance of consent. It's not easy to talk about a consensual sexual experience, so the idea of talking about a non-consensual sexual offence is incredibly difficult. And we work on the basis that people should be entering into those intimate and private acts with the agreement, feeling comfortable, understanding what they're doing, and wanting to take part in those acts. And what we're finding is those communications are just not taking place, or people are relying on assumptions or things that have been implied. And that's what we want to change. We want to take away the power that those myths and misconceptions can have.
My name's Dr. Fiona Vera Gray. I'm the Deputy Director at the Child and Women Abuse Studies Unit at London Metropolitan University. One of the projects that I worked with a while ago now, actually in 2013, was looking at young people's understandings of sexual consent. They understand what consent is in theory. It's the fact that in practice, some of those understandings are still seen as acceptable. So there was a difference between what's seen as acceptable sexual practice and actually an understanding of what is unlawful sexual practice. Verbal conversations can do a lot in terms of creating a better sexual experience, but it's also about non-verbal cues. If someone is looking a little hesitant, if someone is not maintaining eye contact with you, if someone is not touching your body back and you are touching their body, they're not kissing you back and you're kissing their body, these are things that might prompt you to think, I need to actually now be quite verbal in checking whether someone is okay. It's very important to talk to your peers because they may be learning from you actually that other people don't think it is okay to take from someone something that they haven't willfully, freely, happily engaged in with you.
So there are a lot of myths and stereotypes when it comes to what is consent, how do you get consent. So things like relationships. So just because you're in a relationship, an intimate relationship, that means that you've got consent. That's not the case. It's about making sure that you're having those conversations and that consent is given every time and never assuming consent.
Consent is obviously something that's very important to me, being a victim of rape, especially since the particular time that it happened. It was a case of me being asleep. So it really felt very black and white to me that it wasn't acceptable. And yet I still, when I tried to speak to the person afterwards about it, he genuinely seemed so shocked. He didn't understand why I would be upset by this happening and couldn't seem to comprehend that there would need to be some kind of conversation involved around it. It was a really scary moment for me because I would have assumed that, especially with somebody being asleep, it would have been a very clear thing that that was a crime. There was a small moment where I thought, maybe I am overreacting, which again, looking back on it, it just seems insane. I, called the police immediately. I had a really great team working with me who made me feel safe. Unfortunately, with crimes such as rape, if somebody had burgled my house and I didn't feel safe, I could move. But he's done this to my body, and I have to live in my body for the rest of my life. So that's something I get to carry around with me. I have lost my ability to trust my own judgment in whether or not I feel people are dangerous. And that has had a huge effect on my friends, my family, my job, my partners. I really hope that that's something that I will be able to get over with time. But that fear that it could happen again at any time by anybody, regardless of how nice they may seem, lives in me forever.
My name is Jay. I am the Pride Wild Stage Coordinator with Reading Pride, and I also run my own drag events business based in Reading. Whenever I am running a drag show, I always say at the beginning as a host that one of the most important policies we have for the show is that consent is key. We've all had our asses slapped, we've all been touched inappropriately, we've all had inappropriate sexual comments made at us, which makes us feel objectified and pretty disgusting, really, because underneath all the makeup and all the wigs and costumes, we're still human beings, and we have to take that home with us and carry that with us wherever we go.
My name is Jamie and I work with Reading Pride. When I heard about this campaign that Thames Valley Police were delivering, it spoke to me very loudly due to my lived experiences, both as a survivor, but also as someone who has supported people who have gone through similar lived experiences. In 2018, I had essentially gone on a dating app within the gay community, and unfortunately I was raped, and that was actually by two people. They sent me their address and I went to their house, and when I got there was actually two people there, and when I was messaging the guy I was only aware that there would be one person there. I was really taken back by that, but I'd come from a night out, so already my capacity was affected by being intoxicated, which again I think is something that I've had to work through, because there is an element of self-responsibility involved within that. And they offered me something called Tina. They had a bong, and I naively assumed that what was inside that bong was cannabis, but actually it was crystal meth. My memory is very foggy, but the things I do remember is it was absolutely horrible. And then I black out, and that's when I then woke up, and one of the guys was raping me. When I was 18 years old, trying to make sense of the fact that I chose to go to that property, I'm blaming myself. What are the force going to think? And also, when considering dating apps and stuff, the types of messages, the types of photos that you send, it tends to be very explicit. So also being aware that that would be factored in as evidence is really, really damaging, because whilst it's relevant, absolutely, there's this degree of, well, people are going to think that what happened was consensual because of the way that I projected myself prior to this experience. And actually, consent can be revoked.
And somebody may not say no, they may not fight back, they may not scream or shout. That doesn't mean it wasn't rape. If there was some flirtatious behaviour, some consensual sexual activity, if sex follows, it doesn't mean it wasn't rape. If people are in a relationship, it doesn't mean that sexual activity is consensual. You can be in the middle of consensual sexual activity and then withdraw your consent. That is okay. It's also important that people understand if they meet somebody online and there's some conversation, some sexual content, explicit content, if they then meet up, that doesn't mean that they are consenting to sexual activity. A simple definition of rape is when penetrative activity happens and the other person doesn't consent to it, and the penetrator doesn't reasonably believe the other person has consented. It's also important to mention that the penetrative activity is not just vaginal, it might be anal, it might also be oral penetrative activity with a penis. Our specialist lawyers understand the impact of trauma on a person when considering the evidence in a case and take that into account, because everybody is different as to how they may react following a traumatic incident. They will look at the actions of a suspect in order to consider whether or not there is sufficient evidence to prosecute a case. Cases of rape and serious sexual offence can be complex. They often are prosecuted based solely on the word of an individual. We support victims by working closely with the police at the early stages in an investigation, and also with other support agencies such as independent sexual violence advisors. And we will listen to victims to make sure that the measures available in court to assist them give evidence are applied for. There are a number of different ways in which victims can be supported to give their evidence in court.
So I had no idea when I first went to the police of just how low the conviction rates are. To me, it was just an immediate response. This man has broken the law. What he has done is not okay, and I'm just going to pick up the phone and call the police. There were definitely times where I was like, you know, do I go forward with this? But I was like, no, I have to push on. I just knew that what he'd done was wrong, and I had such a faith in the police system. As soon as my court case was over, I just felt such a wave of empowerment, and I was so proud of myself for standing up against someone and being strong and speaking my truth.
So this campaign is hugely important to us at Thames Valley Police. We really want to be able to connect with young adults and encourage you to have conversations. We want you to talk to your peers, to adults that you trust. And we know that as police, we can't be passive about that. We need to engage with you. We need to help you understand from what we have learnt about sexual offences and what we want to do to help empower you, help educate you, help you have conversations with your friends. If it empowers one person to feel and to say, I understand consent, and consent wasn't there for me, for them to know that they can report that to police and what our position will be on that.
If I was to give a message about consent, I would say you can never ask too many times. So it's always good to just double check, triple check, make sure someone is feeling comfortable. Never ever assume that you've got consent, and always challenge behaviour that just doesn't sit right with you.
So I know it's uncomfortable and it doesn't need to be a fight, but just calling people out on certain use of language or the way they're being with people goes such a long way.
I think everyone needs to do better, and everyone does just need to take a look at themselves and just think, what can I do better for myself, my friends and my community?
Consent is something that's important to everybody, because anyone can be a victim of sexual abuse or sexual assault. It's important no matter what age you are, no matter what gender, no matter what race, no matter what sexuality, that you're educated about consent.
It's important that the message that we're given is that when someone's in a safe relationship, there is open, there's honest communication, there is consent that is verbalised, there is consent that is valid and is clear.
It's really important that we get the message out that you're not alone in this and we can help you. This campaign is a really good start to getting that conversation moving and getting people talking about consent.
Our message to young adults is don't shy away from having these conversations with each other. Know where to look for help and know when to speak out.
Consent is an ongoing issue. It's far better that you have those conversations out in the open rather than us having conversations with you in a police interview room when it's too late and people have overstepped the mark.
The more people that speak out on their experiences will hopefully bring a lot of change among society. Consent is far more than a simple yes or no, and it's about looking for that yes in more than one way. It's not just about hearing that yes, because that person might say yes, but they might not know what they're doing.
My advice for anyone leaving home for the first time, getting to university, just starting to figure out what social interaction really is everything does come down to consent. It is if someone gives their permission, right? You can wear what you want, you can be who you want, you can love who you want, you can act how you want, as long as it is not affecting anyone else. So it's really, really important that you respect people's boundaries and you honour their decisions. It doesn't hurt to have that conversation.
Thank you. I'll stop it there. Sharing for a second. Thank you. Hope you all enjoyed that and took learning from it. Just going to get the PowerPoint up. Just bear with me. There again. See that, Marcia?
Yes, it's up.
Perfect. You can hear me all right?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Lovely. Perfect. So I will start with why the campaign came about. So I don't need to tell anyone about the challenges in prosecuting cases of sexual violence. It's a global issue. It's marked by those low conviction rates, underreporting, persistent myths and false assumptions. If we want to change that, we need to take the top two. So we need to take the top two of that, and we need to tackle the third. So we need to change the myths and misconceptions. When this all started, I was working in an investigative department where we predominantly dealt with sexual offences. I still do within domestic abuse. It's still prevalent, very much so in that arena. And one thing we found at a particular time was we had a number of fairly high profile cases that went to court, and we didn't always get the results that we wanted. We had a number of cases that were found not guilty and acquittals in court, and it always came back to consent. The reason for that was consent, and I believe that an understanding both within the juries, within society, within the criminal justice system as a whole, and I felt we needed to tackle that, and we wanted to tackle the sort of misconceptions, those understandings around consent, and we did that through this consent conversations. That also coincided with what the CPS had done. So they had done a survey with Equally Ours, and the results were fairly striking, to be honest. The survey found that while the public's understanding of consent around rape and sexual offences has grown and had improved over the last 20 years, there was still a significant false beliefs, misunderstanding and misconceptions where less than half of people can identify common truths about rape, and this figure was much lower, especially within those younger age groups. So sort of focusing on those younger age groups, those younger adults, those 18 to 24-year-olds, only half recognise that rape can still you can still be a victim of rape if you don't fight back. Less than half recognise that being in a relationship or marriage doesn't mean that sex can be assumed. And then a massively astounding figure of 78% of people thought that if you were speaking online to someone and had agreed to meet up to have sex, that you had to have sex, that you because you'd agreed online or via text messages that was implied, and they couldn't withdraw that consent. And it causes issues to us all, right? It causes issues to us as police officers. It causes issues to you guys in your profession, and when you're dealing with adults and how you safeguard them, because this understanding around consent can put people in dangerous positions, and we need to improve their understanding of that to help change the outcomes, and ultimately try and stop people being victims and stop people being perpetrators of these offences. So then what did we do? What have we done since this consent campaign started? So it's been a busy 18 months. As I said, it was myself and a colleague of mine, DCI, Laura Corskaden. She's an SIO for Thames Valley Police, working in major crime. And she was someone who was also very passionate about this, and we've done quite a bit over the last 18 months. So as you've just seen, we've created the documentary, which is in essence for education. So it's for forums like this, it's for universities, it's for colleges, it's for sixth forms, it's for anyone who can watch this and take something from that. We also recognise that young people listen to or are influenced by a number by people, whether it be peers, social media influences, or the internet itself. So we created a number of small bite-sized videos for social medias. And we felt we needed to focus in on a number of topics that were coming up over and over again. Those were around relationships, the understanding that if you're in a relationship, consent isn't always there. That it can be withdrawn at any time. And surprisingly, like, as I said in the last survey, people don't recognise that. The sexting element goes back to the 78% of people. Withdrawing consent, understanding that just because you said yes at the start, you can change your mind, and you can withdraw that at any point. And intoxication, people when they're drunk, they're in positions where they've taken drugs, they're at festivals, they're on nights out. Understanding this was around the perpetrators, that actually if someone is intoxicated, it might not be true consent and it could get you in trouble in the future. So really trying to sort of delve in onto those 4 topics. We understood that we needed a figurehead for this. We needed someone who was going to be able to put the campaign out and be a voice for young people. And we approached Georgia Harrison, who was very keen to get involved in this campaign. She fronted it. She was as you saw on that video, she was part of that, but she was a big part of the smaller videos. She came to Reading Festival with us. She walked around the campsite. She spoke to young people. And she's a real campaigner for this. And recently, as I said right at the start, has been recognised and has received an MBE. And part of the work that she did with us on consent conversations was in the write-up for her MBE. So the great work that she's done for this, along with other stuff, has been recognised. We had the videos played. You can see the photos. I don't know how clear they are, but we had the videos played at Reading Festival. It was on the main stage for the last 2 years. That's expanded to Leeds. We're hopeful that we can get this campaign out into other festivals, such as Glastonbury. We're working with Festival Republic and other companies at the minute to try and get these promoted at the festivals. We saw a huge decrease in the last 2 years of sexual offending because of the work that we've done at the festival, especially at Reading. And the videos are great. They're played just before that, the acts as they come on. So we've got a captive audience of up to 100,000 people watching those. We've worked closely with other forces, in particular GMP, so Greater Manchester Police, who also promote the documentaries and have used the bite-sized videos in some of the festivals up in Manchester. Laura and I have appeared on Crime Watch on 2 occasions now, where we've promoted the campaign, and we've also spoken about a rape offence that happened in Reading to promote the sort of dangers. We've all been live on BBC, Sky, ITV, National News. That was Georgia. She's done that for us. 10 o'clock news across all platforms when the campaign initially started. We have worked very closely with Pride. We wanted this to be a very inclusive campaign. From research, other consent campaigns such as the consent campaign, which was Thames Valley Police, we didn't feel that they were very inclusive for the general society. So we work with Pride, as you can see from the video. We work with other people from other backgrounds in order to really speak to people and understand that consent isn't just in that heterosexual relationship. It is broader than that. From working with Pride, they have now promoted this on all their platforms on a national basis. They've really taken it on Instagram in particular, and have done some great work in promoting this. CPS, the head of the RASO, which is the Rape and Sexual Offences team, she is very supportive of this campaign, and CPS have worked with us, and they've used this as their national campaign too, using the videos for education internally, because surprisingly not everyone within CPS perhaps is aware of these factors. So we really wanted to educate internally and externally within agencies. And more recently, we've got a consent tent now. You can see the bottom right picture there. That's our consent tent at Reading Festival. We've got that this year, going to be at Leeds and Reading. And we go around, we have a number of volunteers from different agencies, and we're always keen to expand those volunteers to come and work with us at the festival. They go around, speak to young adults, they speak to the people there, they make sure that everyone is learning and everyone is understanding exactly what consent is. And we're working with the local universities, we're working with the local colleges, Oxford, Reading, to try and get into this target age group to give sessions and to continue to promote this. So lots of work has been done. That is probably just a snippet, if I'm completely honest. So we feel that we're evaluating the impact of this as well. Young people understand in theory, but when you add relationships, power pressures, cohesion, vulnerabilities, it can get complicated. That's why we want to talk about this, especially with young men, understand exactly what their actions are causing. So then what can you do? So use our content, share it, start these conversations, not just with young adults, but with vulnerable adults. Train your teams, ensure that everyone has a real understanding of what consent is. Young adults are listening. They want this. We've had a number of surveys. They want to really promote what consent is, and especially in those young men. They want to understand what those myths and assumptions are, and they want to make sure that when they're pushing forward in these circumstances, they aren't breaking the law in any way. And the way I've always looked at it, if we can prevent one offence or empower one person to report, we've succeeded. But together we can do so much more. If we can all do that, then we can really change the way consent is. So we feel that everyone needs to help engage, work in partnership, and we can really change things. So imagine a future where every young adult understands consent, for example. I don't believe it's just a theory, but in practice we can do that. One conversation or a workshop that you do could prevent a lifetime of trauma, and maybe some better justice for people. So we really want everyone to work together on this. So yeah, that's that slide. So overlapping, how does this overlap with safeguarding adults? So although consent conversations is predominantly focused on sexual consent, its foundations are deeply aligned with those principles of adult safeguarding. They both share a commitment to empowerment, ensuring individuals have the right ability to make informed choices. They emphasize protection, not only from harm, but from situations where autonomy is compromised. Understanding vulnerability in certain is essential for both, recognizing that factors such as cognitive impairment, dependency, or fear can affect a person's ability to give or refuse consent. Finally, both frameworks require vigilance in identifying that cohesion, whether subtle or overt, and taking action to prevent exploitation. In essence, consent conversations reinforces the same values that underpin safeguarding practices, making them highly relevant to professionals working to protect adults at risk. So I do feel that together the concept of this is obviously sexual offending, but I do believe that it works in both ways. So just sorry, moving on. That looks like we've got that slide a few times. I don't know why that's happened. So consent conversations, it can't be separated from safeguarding, because many adults at risk experience sexual exploitation, rape, through sexual offending. Sexual consent cannot be separated because of the issues that are deeply interconnected. Many adults at risk experience sexual exploitation, rape, coercive sexual relationships, making consent a critical safeguarding concern. Both areas share the core principles around capacity, choice, control, and the power dynamics, which determine whether consent is valid and safe. We as professionals have a responsibility to recognise when consent is not freely given, when it's not informed, or offered without fear or pressure. This is especially important because sexual abuse and coercive control remain among the most underreported safeguarding concerns, often hidden behind those assumptions of silence. By addressing the consent within safeguarding practices, we will strengthen our ability to protect individuals from harm while respecting their autonomy. So, yeah, I've tried to link this very much into safeguarding. And if a professional understands how sexual consent works and how it can be freely given, withdrawn, or manipulated, then they understand safeguarding. Consent conversation gives staff the language and the confidence to identify sexual harm, coercive control, and vulnerabilities very early. It isn't about getting to young people, isn't just about getting to young people and talking about sex. It's about helping educate them so that we can prevent offences, empower that safeguarding in professionals to recognise vulnerability, coercion, and control. So it is very interlinked, as I said, and working within the domestic abuse arena, working on domestic abuse offences on a daily basis, it's very clear that it isn't just that 18 to 24-year-olds, it is everyone. And we need to be very much awake and alive to these misconceptions. And by educating ourselves, we are making it easier for us to pass that education on to the people that we safeguard. Marcia, I did say I didn't think it would last an hour and a half. So there it is. That's the presentation. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate that it's a bit quicker than what we've
that's not a problem at all. I'd call James. So we've got one question in our question and in answers, but I think you may have answered that. So somebody said, brilliant video, is it being shown in secondary schools?
Yeah, so I can answer. Yeah, it's there. It's on the internet, so it's on YouTube. I can share the link with Marcia, who can then push that out if everyone who's attended. We want it in all secondary schools. We want everyone to use this. However, it's our ability to be able to drive that. Laura and I are only two people. We've done a lot of this work just by ourselves. So yeah, we want you as professionals, if you've got that ability and that to get this into schools, into universities, to show them to young people, then please do use this video and show young people and adults.
Thank you. And I think the fact that most of the video was shot in and around Reading, it makes it quite relevant, like locally as well, doesn't it? It feels very relevant to me.
Absolutely, it was all Reading. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the presentation, James. It was really helpful, and that video, it's really impactful. Actually, I really enjoyed watching it as well. So
thank you.
So I'd like to thank James for his time this morning, and thank you all for taking part and listening as well. As I said at the beginning, we have a full packed week of webinars, so please have a look on our website and see what we've got. The video will be up on our website. We hope it'll be up on the website next week, and we'll put all the links to the things that James has spoken about as well. James, you've got a couple of comments in the chat as well. People thanking you. Thank you to James and hi to Laura. So lots of thanks in there and how insightful it was.
Thank you all for joining us.
All right then.
Thank you, Marcia. All right, take care. Bye.